Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is a retelling of the entire Dragon Ball Z story from a single player third-person perspective view as you play not only as Goku or Kakarot, but also a variety of the Z fighters that inhabited the overall narrative that was the epic Dragon Ball Z. Now, I am a huge fan of the Dragon Ball franchise, be it the original, be it Dragon Ball Z, be it even Dragon Ball Super. What I expected was a gratuitous amount of fan service, a perfect or at least an abridged retelling of the overall story, the big arcs. All of those things that made those episodes so profound, so memorable to be a part of this story, and that's what I've gotten thus far. All of the big moments, all the key interactions, and most importantly, the battles themselves. The overall combat is very similar to the Dragon Ball Xenoverse games where you're automatically airborne and more than likely throughout the entire fight, no matter if you're fighting one or multiple opponents, you will stay in the air, throwing melee attacks, trying to block, trying to counter, trying to, of course, unleash super attacks like the Kamehameha wave. One of the most important features when it comes to combat, and pretty much why I enjoy this version more than the Xenoverse versions, is the dodge ability. Timing and parrying are essential in surviving in Dragon Ball Kakarot. By hitting the dodge button with the X or A, depending on what system you're playing on, right before the attack lands will allow for the player to slip around and unleash a great counterattack, be it, as I said, an energy attack or just a simple melee attack. One of the biggest things that comes into the combat also is the leveling system. With this being a pseudo RPG game, you have a leveling system that also ties into the overall lore of Dragon Ball Z. The game does a great job of dishing out experience points, be it the main missions or through side quests, that allows the player to pretty much stay on par with the levels that are of the enemy AI of the main story. So you don't feel like you're being handicapped for not grinding, for not doing everything in the game. But there will be moments when you encounter an enemy that is, as the game presents it, featuring a red aura that informs the player that your character is underleveled against this person. This moment of fighting an enemy that is way overpowered than you, way overleveled than you, can happen not only during the story, but more than likely when just traveling around the world. It doesn't matter how good you are, you will lose this fight. One of the biggest issues when it comes to the combat is the camera, especially when fighting multiple enemies. With a hard lock-on system that cannot be changed, the player will have to grapple and scramble with the camera and more than likely be hit several times by people that you cannot see on screen. I don't know why they didn't fix this or work on this to ensure that players wouldn't be hit so continuously by characters they cannot see or retaliate against. Even with the arrow indicators pointing in the direction of the incoming attack, it's still hard to judge which way to dodge, which way to go, which way to avoid an attack, because you cannot see where that attack is actually coming from. One of the other problems in the game definitely has to do with the tutorials. Some of the combat features, some of the things that you learn while playing the game only come through playing the game, like skill trees. There is a skill tree system in this game that utilizes the orbs found throughout the worlds that allows for you to upgrade certain skills and abilities. The game doesn't even explain to you how to get to the skill tree, let alone how to utilize it, how to upgrade. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there are certain systems that the game does a great job of explaining, and to a certain extent even goes beyond needing to explain what it does, like the community board, which is one of my favorite parts about this game. The community board is pretty much the most RPG aspect of the game. As you play throughout the game, be it the story, be it the sub-stories, you get soul emblems, which are pretty much POG representations of the variety of characters throughout the entire DBZ universe. Now, placing these soul emblems on specific community boards, be it training, adventure, of course Master Roshi would have adult, and the Z Fighter board that is headed by Goku, you can boost certain stats associated with the characters in combat, or say being able to find better items or lower the prices of items that you buy, like healing items. Each soul emblem also has a level associated with each community board, so certain soul emblems may be more appropriate for certain community boards. Also, certain emblems paired together with other emblems actually create even bigger boosts, like King Kame and King Yama. It is a fun, absolutely entertaining RPG element that I have thoroughly enjoyed thus far, and has influenced me to go beyond just the main story and play throughout all the sub-stories if I can get an opportunity to do so, because of the soul emblems I will get from completing those sub-stories. The sub-stories themselves are pretty mundane, even though they do have some great Easter eggs, some great cameo appearances. A majority of them are just fetch quests and go out there and beat up this enemy and come back and tell me how it went. Overall, this is pretty much the DBZ fanboys Dragon Ball game that they've always wanted. The combat is pretty stellar, with some issues connected to the camera work and of course the leveling system that can be a little bit overbearing, but very few and far between when it comes to the latter. When it's time to fight, everything does feel mostly tight. The narrative is pretty much told as best as it can be in a short form without being too overbearing, and of course the voice acting, especially with the English cast, is done expertly well because the majority of the actual English dubbed voice actors are involved in this. It's just a great game of fan service that is everything that you would have wanted if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Now if you don't mind, I have some fishing to do, maybe hunt down some dinosaurs, and of course I will definitely warn any alien invaders that you never put Gohan in a corner, because if you do, you'll have no choice but to shout, "Oh Lordy!"